Okay, folks, welcome back to episode 9 of the Lockdown podcast. Last week we had on our world champion, again, James McSorley, given his bit of experience and through his kind of player's eyes almost of the world championships. So, James, thanks very much. It was really, really impactful. And I'm sure people will get lots and lots of good kind of tips from what you went through over that period of time. But that's done and dusted, and we've got some of the OGs of wheelchair basketball on today. So I'll give you a wee bit of background into this. Over the next kind of 9th, 10th and 11th podcasts that we're going to be doing, we'll be basing on the history of wheelchair basketball within Northern Ireland and bringing it right through up the stages to now. So we're calling this segment the 90s, the noughties and now, and we'll have a lot of different people coming on throughout the week. We might have some familiar faces as well. But that's kind of what we're going to roll with for the next 3 podcasts, so keep an eye out for it, folks. So as I said, we're going to focus on the history of the game within Northern Ireland, and we've got some key members that were kind of part of that first crew that grew the sport within Northern Ireland. So we'll have Ivor Jess, who was part of the Knights committee and chairman, player, fundraiser, just legend apparently. Aubrey Bingham, the same, realistically, committee member, fundraiser, unbelievable player, and then the same with Paul as well, committee member, unbelievable player, coach, mentor. I don't know if you guys have any, kind of downsides, to be honest with you, lads, but cheers for coming on. It's a real pleasure to have you on, and we're excited to kind of get into a few things with you. But guys, just to give you a wee heads up, we do a thing called the Weekly Roundup. So it's just a bit of fun stories, how you've been getting on with lockdown, if there's been anything funny that's happened to you. So I'm gonna go first this week. So obviously we had the last week we had my son gluing a toy to the floor on his hands as well, but not to the floor, just to his hands. So this week, Ben decided that because I cut his hair, so Phil's Barbers has been a thing that we've talked about as well. By the way, I'm starting to put a bit of gel on this morning, which is nice. So Ben decided that he was bored because when Paul with the ball jokes already. But yours is a gift. And absolutely, there's no fading there, lad.
No, definitely not.
All faded.
So he decided he was bored, and because when Daddy gets bored, that we run a wee fun game called Phil's Barbers. Take him up, give him a wee bit of a fade and a bit of crack. Ben decided that he would cut a chunk out of his fringe. So he got some arts and crafts scissors and decided to give him a cut. But he looks like, do you know whenever kids lose their teeth and they've got all their teeth around it and just this gap? Well, he's kind of cut a line into his head about here, and the rest of his fringe falls down. So it looks like he's got a missing tooth only in his fringe. Unbelievable. Like, he couldn't rate it. He's just a...
Start a new trend.
What, sorry?
I could start a new trend.
Oh, dear. So we've been trying to jail that as much as possible. He didn't want his head shaved, so he's going to have to wind his neck in, but I don't know. But tell me this, James, how have you been getting on?
Not too bad. I'm just thinking that's great practice for Ben if he grows up and starts receding to try and like sweep things over and cover up like but yeah, no, I've been grand. We are in the next phase of our return from lockdown here in Gran Canaria, which means as of Monday we were able to get out and rent a car and drive around the island. So we did that. One of my teammates who lives in this apartment with myself and Anna left yesterday, so sorry, the day before. We rented a car, and we live in the very north of Gran Canaria, and we went down south. There's like nice beaches and a couple of cool things down there, and then went to like a wee seaside, like not resort, like a little, like it was very like Spanish town, and it was lovely, and everything was closed because like still everything's closed, but we were able to sit there and get a coffee and look about. And then I think the highlight of that day, and therefore the highlight of the whole week since we've last spoken, was we got to the very top of the tallest mountain in the island. You can drive all the way up, and it's unbelievable. We sat there and we watched the sunset, and from where it is, the sunset's behind Tenerife, so it's really, really cool. It was unbelievable. I'll put a load of pictures up of it on my Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. No, this was all a roundabout way. I took the trip just to plug my Instagram. It was really cool. It was a really special experience, especially because I wouldn't have been allowed to do that for the last 3 months. So no, that was really cool, and that's about the height of it. The rest of it's just been twiddling my thumbs and trying to do some push-ups.
Yeah, I done something similar, to be honest with you. I had a barbecue and then went to Lockshore.
I was gonna say, no, you didn't. You did not.
You watched the sunset of a banger. It was lovely.
That's it, yeah, up to the knocker. Yeah. Sounds unbelievable, Jay. I'm glad that you're getting out and about in the car and stuff, but I'm also jealous as well.
Barrack.
So we're going to move on.
Barrack in the Cave Hill doesn't really.
Before we all get very down. Danny, how you getting on? Any tomatoes?
No exploding tomatoes, which will make sense when people listen to last week's. But difficult to follow that. Sunsets over Tenerife, to be honest with you. Yeah, pretty quiet. Pretty quiet week, but some brilliant feedback on the podcast. We got a lovely email last week. We kind of chatting about the podcast and how people have tuned in, which is always good to know that people are listening. So that was nice. I suppose the other big thing is Elsie, a little daughter, 5 months. I spoke about her already. Has decided she's learned how to scream. But it's not just upset screaming, it's happiness, it's I want something, it's everything. So our house at the minute is very loud, hence the headphones. So that's been interesting. Not quite as good as a sunset, but I'll take it as a win, definitely. I suppose the other thing as well is a question to everyone. Bundesliga, everyone watching the football?
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Oh, how do you get it? How do you get it if you don't have BT Sport?
That's a problem. That's an issue.
By BT Sport.
You find a way.
That's it, yeah.
I'm sure if they call you up, someone would be getting paid to help you find it. Yeah.
No, totally. So watching that, so I know me and Phil spoke about it quite a bit, and he's a bit of a Union Berlin fan, and I know that I've quite like Gladbach and a few other teams as well. So it's been good watching that and seeing some live sport. Real good.
Aubrey, have you been getting on?
I saw a thing online just talking about the Bundesliga, and it was somebody from, I think it was Schalke, PR department or marketing or something, and they put a thing online, and it was why all the supporters of the different Premiership clubs should be supporting Schalke.
Yeah, I've seen this. Yeah.
You know, Arsenal. We used to have a player who played for the Arsenal youth team, and it went down, and there was, tenuous links. I can tell you, but it was quite sort of witty the way the guy had done it. It was very good.
How have you been getting on, like around lockdown? Any funny stories or anything happening with you?
Plenty of drinking, plenty of eating. Oh, sorry. I am absolutely scunnered with bloody lockdown, sort of getting cabin fever. Funny stories. I had my dogs out yesterday, and we have a river path walk round by us, and I was going round with the dogs, and I saw somebody, and the river is extremely low at the minute, as you can imagine, not much rain. And I saw somebody in the river, and I sort of just glanced over. But now and again, there's people get into the river and throw, bread to the ducks and things like that. But then I heard
get a wash.
I had somebody saying, "Hi, Aubrey, hi, maybe getting washed." Hi Aubrey, and it was a girl sort of we know from the village, and basically what had happened was she was round walking her dog, and there's a bit where people tend to let their dogs jump in if their dogs want to swim. She took her dog over to the edge, and the dog pulled her. She went head over heels into the river, soaked from head to toe. So she was sitting on a bit where there's stones in the middle of the river, and to try and get dry, because she only had a pair of shorts and a t-shirt on. So she was saying she didn't want to go up through the village to think she had a wet t-shirt competition. So that was my funny thing for yesterday.
Oh, unbelievable. Ivor, what about yourself? How have you been getting on?
Well, I'm a culture and I do culture things, you know. I live in a bungalow in the middle of a field, and I just came in actually to do this book. I'm in the middle of painting a 200-meter long fence out around the place, which takes for ages. Been doing a bit of veggie gardening in the greenhouse and all that sort of thing. But you know, out here where I live, it's like the Forth River Bridge. You're never finished. You just start at one end, the time you get the other. But I actually was thinking the last couple of years, I'm starting to get on a bit here. This is nearly getting a bit too much to look after. I could probably do with something smaller and not more time in myself and all the rest of it. But since lockdown has came along, I'm very glad of it, to be honest, because I'm working very part-time at the minute because of lockdown. So I'm glad I have it. And you get out and get stuck in, and the next minute, it's lunchtime and you go out and get stuck in again, and then it's tea time, and then you're in for the evening. So,
pretty boring stuff. 2 years ago, I want to know what culture meant, so I'm glad you've used that word, because I now know what you mean.
Unbelievable. Well, Ivor, listen, that sounds good. That you're making the most out of it anyway, and you're getting out and getting your fence painted and doing a bit of gardening. And Aubrey, you need to take a leaf out of Ivor's book, to be honest with you.
I've painted everywhere around here, Ivor, but mine's not the Forth Road Bridge, so it's a bit smaller. So
you should take your life saving, Bill. Aubrey, do a bit of life saving, get in that river and help that girl out. Hey. Paul, how are you getting on?
I'm pretty much like Ivor. I've been painting and power washing and doing like that. Getting my head roasted every time I'm outside.
Paul, are you painting like portraits? Or is it wall?
That'd be easier.
Well, it sounds like you're keeping yourself busy anyway. It sounds like you're keeping yourself busy. Everybody sounds like they're keeping themselves busy, except for me, running around with Ben, making sure he's not gluing his hands to the floor or cutting his hair. So at least he's got something, a bit more proactive to do rather than run about after a 6-year-old. But listen, lads, it's always a blast. It's always good crack to hear what people are up to. We're going to do it slightly differently in terms of before we get on with the nitty gritty and moving on to the kind of 90s with the lads and asking their thoughts on the club development side of things. But Danny, give us a couple of the stats in regards to what was going on in the 90s.
So yes, constituted in January 1990, but I know you guys started kind of 89. It's in 1889 then, 1989. So number one in the charts then. Does anyone have an idea what it was in January 1990? James, you don't even need to answer. You're younger than me. No. It was. No, it was New Kids on the Block, Hanging Tough, apparently.
Ooh. I don't know what that is.
No, neither do I. No. A couple of other things. The best-selling car at the time, Ford Fiesta. Apparently so. Top of the table, English football was Liverpool at the time, which is, kind of come full circle, Phil. Yeah. And then films from the time released around that time. You're talking Godfather Part 3, Home Alone, Back to the Future.
Home Alone, bloody hell.
Home Alone, there you go. So hopefully that's a bit of nostalgia for you gents, and just takes you back to when you started in the early 90s. Any thoughts on that? Anyone had a Ford Focus? Or Ford Fiesta, sorry?
Ford Fiesta, yeah. I had a Ford Fiesta, yeah. I actually had one with the automatic clutch on it. Ooh. By the way, a lot of people now have obviously the automatics. Well, this one here was a geared car, but it had an automatic clutch button on the gear stick. Huh. When you put your hand on it, you pressed the button and the clutch went in.
Huh, there you go.
Yeah. Wasn't very reliable, Aubrey.
What?
Wasn't very reliable.
No, you are correct. It was a flipping. I was constantly taking it back to the guys who put it in, Malachi McElmeals, and I think it was a prototype,
Yeah. Best-selling car, anyway. There you go.
Oh, I don't know. Danny, cheers as always, coming out with the mad suggestions. When he told me that a couple of days ago about how we're going to do this whole thing, I was like, oh, that sounds unbelievable, like bringing a bit of nostalgia to the guys. But I suppose we'll get started in terms of, looking at the inception of Northern Irish wheelchair basketball. And obviously I've introduced Ivor, Jess, Aubrey Bingham and Paul Gallagher, who were all members of the kind of Knights Wheelchair Basketball Club, which have been the longest standing club within Northern Ireland. And I suppose everybody else is kind of following in their wake to a certain extent at the moment, but it's great to see, the new clubs developing and fledgling. And Aubrey, Ivor was telling me whenever we were having a chat last week that you would have been there before both Paul and Ivor. So give us an idea how that all came about. How did the club start, and how did it thrive and develop and things like that?
My sort of memory of it is actually there was a organisation called the Northern Ireland Paraplegic Association, and they were set up to provide opportunities for people with physical disabilities. At that time, there was no organisation like Disability Sport NI, which works pan disability. At that time, there was organisations working separately for the different disability groups. So NIPA, as the acronym was, Northern Ireland Paraplegic Association, they run like it was sort of like a sports club, activity club up in Strumillis College in Belfast. It was a weekly club where they had a number of sports going on, and I just got a call sort of a while after my accident, actually, from a guy, Colin Robinson, who said to me about the club happening up there, and I went along to see what was going on. I played a bit of table tennis. There was a bit of badminton, I think, going on at that time, and there was no basketball. There was no wheelchair basketball, and just as a few sort of other members, I suppose maybe younger members, joined. We went across actually to Stoke Mandeville to compete in a range of different sports like javelin and table tennis, and some people were doing swimming and that. We saw the wheelchair basketball tournament that was happening over in Stoke Mandeville, and we thought, my God, that is fantastic. It was just really eye-opening, you know, as you can imagine, going from playing table tennis or badminton and then seeing these 10 sort of lunatics up and down the court, crash, people falling out. We just thought, this looks fantastic, great fun, a team sport rather than the individual side. So we thought we would try to get something started back in Northern Ireland. And that would be my memories. I always remember there was only four people at the start, so we didn't even have a team.
Unbelievable.
And we played a match, and this is always stuck in my head. We played a match against those guys down in Uri who had some sort of youth, our club going for people with disabilities, and we played them a match in Stranmillis College, and the score at the end of the match was 4-2. 4 points to them and 2 points to us. So imagine our shooting wasn't so good, you know. So, and they lent us a player because, say, with only 4 players. Yeah.
That was the problem. They had someone on the inside. They were missing all the shots.
That's class. That's really cool to know that, and also to know something that you guys did something domestically really early doors. It's really, really cool.
So you went and see,
and then brought people like Paul and Ivor, and then there was guys like Andy McElmurray, and that sort of came on board, and we were able to put sort of a team into the Irish League and things like that, which really sort of got us going in the right direction.
Yeah. So whenever you came back from, is that almost like a part of the Spinal Games that would go on at the minute, Aubrey?
Yes, it is. That's exactly sort of what it was. So we went over representing sort of NIPA, Northern Ireland, and there's a lot of different sports being played at Stoke Mandeville, and you can go and try out sort of different sports. So that was the idea behind it.
Yeah, and who were the other kind of founding members within that kind of group? That you would.
Michael Mullis would have been one of the founding members. The fellow Colin that I mentioned there, Colin Robinson, he sort of fell away quite quickly, and Michael really became the sort of the main driving force behind things. Him and his mum Margaret, they really sort of threw themselves into the sport, and were instrumental really in starting the sport off in Northern Ireland. Getting us a little bit of sponsorship to buy sort of a kit, which we thought, whoa, getting a kit and all, the first kit was fantastic, and they were sort of sending out reports to newspapers and all this here, and we just thought we were the bee's knees because they made it sound brilliant, Knights charge into the games and all, all things, on the back of that Knight's name. But really the sort of Mullis family were driving force behind it. And sort of we all came along and sort of, I mean, they had all the great ideas in terms of how we could progress the club and the sport.
Yeah. And what kind of year was that in, Aubrey? Like what
it was 89 was started. We did a little bit of training, and I used training loosely. I mean, it wouldn't be at what James is doing now. It was basically us pushing up and down the court in Stranmillis, trying to pick the ball up off the floor and trying not to crash into the doors at the end, because there wasn't very much runoff then.
That sounds class, you know, that you because I think we've got that experience whenever we speak to GMs, we speak to different people across the sport, as I've been explaining to you. The first thing is whenever they watch the sport live for the first time, I remember Neil Carlisle talking about that. It's just so impactful on him. He just had a massive, like, this is exactly what I need to be involved in. Like it just got all the juices flowing, and then the next thing was he was up at training. And people like yourself letting their tires down, as you did with me, but that's for a different story. Who was next in then, Ivor? Was it yourself or Paul? You know, how did you get involved, Ivor?
I was next in.
Paul.
You were next in, Paul. And what kind of like teased you into the sport? How did you get involved?
Well, I had my accident the end of 1990, and then I was back up in hospital for rehabilitation for 3 or 4 weeks. Michael Munnis was on the ward and called around and asked me if I'd be interested in coming along. They were training up in Suffolk or somewhere near that. I said, "Do you fancy coming along, see what it's about?" So went along, had a wee training session, jumped on the chair, pushed around, fell out, got back in, fell out, got back in. And
no anti-tippers then, Paul?
no strapping, no tippers, no nothing.
We were hard.
Every day, you had a pile of washers stuck on them.
And
2 weeks.
So what I'm always very interested as to what drove you to go up, you know what I mean? Because we often hear when we're speaking to younger people now, or some people that first get into the game, what attracted you to the sport? I know you got a phone call, for example, or somebody made contact with you, but had you seen the sport before, or was it just in you to go, right, okay, I've been involved in sport in the past and I want to throw myself into something again?
It was just the fact that I was a builder. Work was over, couldn't do it anymore. I was doing rehab in hospital, and Michael came along. I had no idea what it was like. I haven't heard of it, hadn't seen it before. So it was 1991, about March or April. So just decided to go along, just get out of the hospital, break the boredom. So I had 2 weeks in a row, and that was basically it. I was living in Derry at the time, so I was travelling up and down. Then every Tuesday night, I think it was. Back and forth to training.
From Derry? Flip that
with no chair. Every day.
I imagine that was tough at that time. I bet it wasn't as easy as it even is now. You know, traveling up and down as well.
No, I wasn't even driving at the time, so I depended on someone to give me a lift up and down as well. So
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was just different. There was a few old chairs knocking around that you tried to fit into, but you were really going. You're like Bambi on ice, basically. You were just falling out of the whole time. But no, I just loved it. I loved that you could get a bit of aggression and get a bit of sweat on, and then be around people who were with chairs as well. So it really made a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose that's another big thing that we would have now, that there's much more clubs in the environment, and you know, you obviously are instrumental in the Wolves down in London Derry at the moment in terms of the development of that club and how that's going. And I suppose that would have been something that you probably would have strived after whenever you were younger and you were going through that kind of like going up and down the road and up and down motorways and one thing or another. That probably would have been a lot easier on you anyway, or a lot easier in somebody's fuel bill. I hope somebody was paying a couple of quid towards you anyway, getting you up and down the road there. Ivor, how did you get involved with the Knights Wheelchair Basketball Club? Because after speaking to yourself and speaking to Aubrey, I was kind of looking at it, and you seem to be very, very instrumental in terms of taking on the first kind of like chairmanship of the club almost, and giving it a bit more stability. I know Aubrey had mentioned about Michael Munnis and how great he was, but you were kind of like the first chairman that the Knights had. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's true. I had my accident. It came around kind of the same way as Paul's came around there. I was in Musgrave Park Hospital in the middle of '91, and there's one day these two sort of cool guys come in wheelchairs, Aubrey and Michael, and I think they must have been on a bit of a recruitment drive for the old Knights there. And Michael actually came over to me. Aubrey was there too, and said, you know, would you like to give this wheelchair basketball a go? Now, I played basketball in school, able-bodied basketball, obviously then, and loved it. So, and you know, I did a lot of sport. I did a lot of cycling and played amateur league football every Saturday. So I thought, you know, well, this is good. At least there's some sporting going and try to do here. So, and I went down and you know, saw the guys were making a good fist of it and so forth, and kind of seeing how it was done and all the rest of it, and got into it. And as Aubrey Paul was saying, there are no anti-tips in them days, so you did take a fair few smashes in the back of the old cranium, like, but didn't do us any harm, knocked a bit of sense into us. And,
I don't know about that. I know all of you.
But and then you were saying about the German thing. We had a great there was a great coach there, a very driven wee lady called Pat Linus. Whenever I arrived there, and one day after one of the training sessions, we were just round a table having a bit of a meeting about the club, and you know, the chat got round to was just starting to make it a bit more, you know, formal, a bit more formalised.
Yeah.
And Margaret, as Aubrey said, Margaret and Michael were working away, and you know, and sort of developing the club, and we, you know, I think Pat turned around and said, Ivor, you could be chairman. So I was never democratically elected or anything. I just
it was just you turned around and the room was empty and the
you know, so then
coach wasn't there, Ivor, so anything we did what we were told.
I was sort of chairman then for 8 years, but you know, it was an absolute privilege to be chairman for that near enough decade in the 90s, because we had great committee members, a couple of which are in this podcast, and everybody was very willing and very to get on with it and very driven and wanted to take the club forward. You know, and it wasn't long before it escalated, because you know, we went into the GB League, and then we were able to take part in a couple of unbelievable tournaments. We first of all, I think in '96 travelled to Toronto to the Spitfire Challenge. Wow. And I mean, we had to raise 10 grand on our own bat to do that, and we managed to do it through all sorts of things. And I think we actually needed 13 grand to go on that trip. And the NIE, the Monases did such a brilliant job with the PR work and all the rest. They impressed the NIE, and they came forward with the extra 3 grand, and that allowed us to go. And then we returned again to Toronto, I think, in 1999. And in between that, we had our own Excalibur tournament, which was a big thing. And I know the guys are, everybody in the committee worked tirelessly to get that going. Like, it was a big coup for us. We had teams from 8 different countries, you know, including Germany, Sweden, Canada, France, the Republic, England. So it was a fantastic tournament. It went really well, and when everybody was over, we treated them like royalty. You know, everybody was very well treated. And in fact, that's the old program there from
unbelievable.
Tournament. And with a sort of a classy logo there with basketball, with a ball dropping down through it with an Excalibur sword through it, you know. And as I say, Aubrey and Paul know all about that, because had to be an awful lot of work done to get that pool together, but it went very, very well.
Yeah.
But you know, as I say, we had a great committee, and everybody was pulling in the right direction. Later on, then, you know, during the 90s, I think Aubrey was the one with the vision that we needed to get a junior club going, and you know, because Aubrey could obviously see that the future of the Knights, you know, there's a few of us starting to head to the twilight years, you know, so you know, getting a bit long in the tooth.
They were in the twilight zone.
Aubrey, you know, Aubrey had this great vision and got the junior club up and running, and you know, and there's been so many good things has happened from that.
Yeah. Aubrey, how did that, when like talking about, you've told me about mad international tournaments and escapades that the nights went on in the office. How did that make you feel whenever you seen that program there? You know, like reminiscing on that sort of stuff, because Danny, like, we need the upper game. If these guys are going across the flip in Canada and all sorts of places, we need the upper game, lad. Never mind, Craig Alvin, we need to go to Canada. But Aubrey, how did that make you feel at the time? You know what I mean? If you think back on it,
that tournament was incredible for us. You know, we had been to a couple of tournaments, you know, in Europe and that, and but just to get those teams over to Northern Ireland was a bit of a coup. You know, 8 different sort of countries represented, and just to see them in the Antrim Forum lined up at the start of it, I near had a tear in my eye. I remember at the time, because there was a lot of work put into that by the committee. You know, in terms of the organisation of the court, the teams, sort of all the food, transport, everything sort of, and it was just fantastic to see. And I always remember we came third. It was 8 teams. We came third in that tournament, and we played Corbeil-Essonnes, a French team, in the 3rd and 4th place playoff. And there was like about 300 people. We had bleachers out in the forum, and there was about 300 people in the bleachers, you know, supporters, sponsors, etc. And it was some atmosphere, you know, and give us such a buzz. And we won that 3rd place playoff, and it was brilliant, you know, and it inspired sort of the whole sort of club, you know, because we were all sort of buzzing from it, right? We've had the tournament, where can we go now? Everybody was wanting to train more and get the levels, and it really sort of pushed things on, you know.
Would you agree with that, kind of, like, because I know we have talked about, James has talked about something similar in previous podcasts in terms of the more competitive environments that kind of come to fruition for a club. The more often people want to train, the more often people want to take things serious. To a certain extent, it becomes more structured, and people want to get better because they're represented. Would that be about right, Paul? Is that kind of how you, like, from a new player's perspective, is that how you felt as a player whenever you were part of that?
It's just been involved in the whole thing. Seeing players trying to better yourself, sort of goal set yourself. We have to make this happen. We have to get better. If we want to compete, we have to do this, we have to do that, which we did. I myself, Aubrey, Michael, even Jason Black, and would train 3 and 4 times a week ourselves, and then train twice a week with the club. So the competitions really give us the drive to do more and want to do more.
Yeah,
that's really interesting for me, and I think the point that I can take from that, Paul, I'm going to kind of go back to you, is the club that you're involved with now, the North West Wolves, are almost like going through that process that you've spoken about already, the forming of the committee and the joining of a competition. I guess you're kind of reliving that again. Is that?
Yeah, basically back to the start again. Yeah. So they're starting from their fundamentals, getting themselves playing together, working together as a team. With the Northern Ireland League, it's been fantastic because they've improved so much. They were doing drills and drills and drills, but it was some of it was going in and some of it wasn't going in. But that game scenario really helped them.
Yeah.
The team that played the first game to the team that played the last game, you can't compare them. You really can't. Totally. So, and we went down last year to Dublin and played in a wee playoff game against the new team down there. And even though they get stuffed, it still give. Right, when we went out again, when can we come back down again?
Yeah.
And we do. So you definitely, it's okay training and playing amongst yourselves, but you need the competitions. And hopefully we'll have more competitions where we travel to England or Scotland and play more.
It just provides everybody with an impetus, doesn't it, within the sport, across all of the teams that are there now. But James, how does it, like, you're obviously a Knights player through and through, regardless of who you've signed for and whoever's paying your wages now. Coming into that club environment, 6, that you had no idea that any of that stuff was going on, but does that provide you with a bit of an understanding of, like, the environment that you were going into? Now you reflect on maybe your time at the Knights, you know, that how proactive the whole system was in terms of providing opportunities for people.
Yeah, like I haven't said anything for a long time because I'm just sitting here listening, and it's absolutely class to hear you.
It is, yeah.
Stories. Like, I'm loving this. Like, when I held up that booklet from that tournament, I'm like, where can I get a copy of that? Like, I want to read that from front to back. Like, that's absolutely amazing. But it's just like someone Ivor said that, or Paul said that it was Aubrey's idea to sort of get the juniors going, and without Aubrey having that idea to put forward the idea of like getting juniors involved for the future of the club, we wouldn't be having the conversation about like me being Knights through and through, or this club here paying my wages right now. Like, you know, like the cool experiences that I've been lucky to talk about over the last 8 weeks of podcasting or whatever, and the countless times that I talk about basketball in my daily life, like none of that happens if it isn't for you guys and the people you've talked about setting the club up, and Aubrey having the idea to let us young ones have a go. Like, and I joined in 2001, so I was a bit later than even any of that stuff. Like, I don't know how long the juniors was going before I got
Your next week's episode. Your next decade.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. But even like that feeling that Aubrey described, I had something very similar when we had, and it wasn't even club related, when we held an international friendly tournament in the Antrim Forum in 2012. That was the first time I ever got to play for a GB team, junior or senior. I played for like a GB senior B team in that friendly tournament, and that, even like that being in the Antrim Forum, even though it wasn't specifically club based, like we all knew what that was about. Like, that was Knights knocked that tournament together, and with a lot of help from a lot of different places, I would say. But like, having an international tournament in the home of the Knights, like in the same sports hall that I pushed into at 6 years old, and Aubrey handed me a basketball and put me in a basketball chair, like that was really, really special. And just hearing about how that all got built it's class. Like, I'm just going to sit back and listen for the majority of it, because this is really special and I'm having a great time. And also, I need to ask, do you remember who won the Excalibur tournament? Because I need to know.
Toronto.
Ooh.
Toronto beat Heidelberg, didn't the Ivor? Toronto beat Heidelberg from Germany, I think, in the final. Patrick Anderson was playing for Toronto.
Oh yeah,
I'd heard a story about that before, but I wasn't sure if I was making it up. So I needed to confirm that Pat was at that tournament.
17.
That's really cool.
17. He was brilliant. He was sitting on his stumps out of the chair, going about the floor and that, in between games. Obviously, I'm talking about, and he could even shoot the ball from there, and we were all just wow, and the whole Toronto team, the setup was fantastic. And actually, through talking to them, we and going to their tournament, when we went to the Toronto tournament, we realised they had an internal league, but it was all Toronto players, because they had so many players. They had like about 6 teams and had an internal league where they split their better players up on any new players or junior players, and there was no point system or anything like that. But they had that internal league, and that gave us a wee sort of idea to do that.
I love that, our wee in-house league that we got going. I have a vague
Timber rules and all.
That was absolutely class. I think I remember specifically like that in-house league. I remember being on Big Paul's team. Like, that's some good memories from that. That'll be class to get going again.
James mentioned about the juniors there, and you mentioned it, Phil. How it actually started was we were getting phone calls from parents who had heard about the Knights, maybe saw a little advert on TV or saw something. And said to us, we were getting phone calls, my wee Jimmy or my wee James is 6 years of age, 7 years of age. What is there for them? Is there a junior set up? And we didn't actually have a junior set up at that time. And we thought, right, we can't introduce them in, because it was all adults playing at the time. So we thought, we need to do some for juniors, because we got so many of those calls. We thought, there's definitely scope there. So we did some fundraising and actually raised nearly 40 grand at the time.
40 grand?
Yeah.
And you didn't go on holiday?
Well,
holidays.
Oh, there you go.
Delivery out the back. No, we bought 20 something chairs, and they were all sort of yellow and purple. James will know this because one of the
My first chair.
were all sort of nice colours, and we were able to pay for court hire, and we were able to pay coaches a few pounds to take sort of junior sessions, which not only helped the juniors but helped people come through in terms of the coaching side as well.
Yeah. And so I suppose, is that, Paul, is that when the money came in, is that when you started coaching the juniors? I'm only kidding you. But James did speak about,
when the check cleared.
James did speak about you guys having a massive influence. And Aubrey, I will come back to that kind of stuff that you were talking about, because you can't just breeze past a TV advert and not explain, and especially from an Aver perspective, from a chairman's perspective, how you manage that. But Paul, like, you had a massive impact. Aubrey was telling me before that you were huge into player development and player recruitment and trying to get young kids to kind of engage in developing their skills. Would that be fair to say? Was that something that motivated you when you were at the club?
Well, that sort of took on Aubrey's vision. He's seen that we needed new players, needed young blood coming in. And there's something at my back door. Sorry, she's away again. And I could see that, we need to introduce it, but we have to introduce a fun element to it as well.
Yeah.
How we try and keep them interested the whole time. I actually remember one of James's first training sessions.
Okay.
We're doing a passing drill up the side, and we boy Kerry, I was teaching him, keep your hands here, protect your face, catch the ball. And the ball went straight through his hands, bounced off his nose, blood everywhere. And there's Mommy came over, wiped his nose, just get on with it, James. And that was it. I thought, I'm for it. Here he is, busted his face open. I'm going to get chewed. But no, his mum and his dad just pushed him on and says, away you go. Man up, man. But no, we had to develop all that. And luckily, we had enough kids as well. That's the downside of some of the where I am at the minute. We haven't enough kids of similar standards.
Yeah.
So you get older ones are a bit stronger, and then you just the ones who are just learning to pick up a ball or catch the ball and stuff like that. So trying to keep them interested is really difficult down here. And that's what me and Phil have chatted about before. We need to get the younger ones involved more.
Yeah.
Play against each other, game scenarios, because they'll lose interest if we don't keep them. And
no, totally, absolutely. Do you know, it's really funny because obviously about the night seeing that vision of we need something for the future. That's probably where the newer clubs are at now. They're probably going. Some of our players are coming to that twilight years. They're going to need someone coming the other way. It's interesting to see that 30 years on, that thought's still going on. Really interesting.
But absolutely, and I know James. That's had him. Sorry, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
It's the only way we can develop teams is actually keep the younger ones interested, because if we don't, we're going to lose them. And that's it.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. And obviously that's had a massive impact on you, James, from a, just in life in general. You've had some mad experiences off the back of Paul having an input, Ivor having an input, and Aubrey, as you've said. But I don't know whether everybody else picked up on that. But like you were talking about a TV advert, who come up with that? Like, where did that come from, or how did that come about? Ivor, from a chairman's perspective, I'm sure whenever somebody said, I've got an idea, we're going to go for a TV advert, I'm sure you're thinking, I didn't sign up for this.
No, not really. It was. I know Michael Munnis had a friend who was involved, and I can't remember, something like the company was called something like Lyle Bailey, and they were the company that done the DOE ads. The sort of like road traffic accident ads that are on at the minute.
Yeah.
The girl, one of the directors, was a good friend of Michael's, and I think they come up with this idea that they would do this TV ad, and it was done and run for a while, but I haven't seen it on for a long time now.
So that came about was that through Michael then, did you say?
Yes, it really was through Michael. There was none of the Knights players in it, if I can remember. It must have been all actors and so forth, but I don't even really know the impact it had, as far as recruiting players or whatever. I don't know that there was much of a difference. If I remember, it was a wee bit of a controversial ad, and it did cause a wee bit of a controversy in the club at that time. I'm not going to go into the reasons, but so
I can't remember it, Ivor. What did it show?
I don't know if I've seen it.
Well, I think the problem was it showed this guy who
Didn't bounce the ball.
Oh, that was the start of it. But
Yeah.
He could have been a joyrider, this guy, and you know it sort of finished off. You know, if you're in a road traffic accident, all the rest of it, and you're raking about, you could end up playing wheelchair basketball. You know, that's right. You know, because the guy again bouncing the ball. You know, and some people thought, right, that sort of shows, you know. That if you to be punished, you know, if you're raking about in the car as a joyrider and all the rest of it, you're going to end up playing wheelchair basketball. It wasn't the sort of the thing that we wanted to portray, you know.
It wasn't exactly the message you were looking to get out there.
That was my own personal take on it, but
that's right. So, I remember it now when you say it, Ivor.
Yeah,
controversial.
I don't think it was great for the Knights Wheelchair Basketball Club. Although I think it was done with the best intentions now.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the people that put it together didn't see that, and that would have been that particular company. But we didn't really have much input into it as far as I know. But thankfully it wasn't shown for a terrible length of time, I don't think. But you know
what was a good one? Do you remember there's community service announcements which they do between programs, and do you remember we got an advert on that, and they said to us it was going to be shown like 3 times in a week, and for about the next 2 years it was like random times it was shown.
Wow.
I think that one was quite impactful in terms of so many people said about that. It was really
it was better. It was better.
So many times.
That was between the news at tea time.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was a really good slot.
Unbelievable.
It was quite good.
Awesome.
I remember trying to miss the camera all the time. The guy was sitting on the chair with the camera, getting pushed around. And then the next minute the camera was between his legs. I go, what the hell's going on? Crashed into this camera here. It's going to cost a fortune. So we had to stay miles and miles apart from him. But it was good fun.
That's unbelievable insight. That's unreal.
Like Aubrey, and you were mentioning then off the back end of recruitment campaigns and adverts and things like that went into the paper and so on. You mentioned that you got quite a lot of interest from younger players or parents ringing you, or maybe other people that were interested in playing the sport.
Yeah, that's basically it. I think that advert sort of had that community service advert was quite a strong sort of recruiter, and then the other guys in the team, they were putting the feelers out in their local areas and speaking to sort of people in health and trust positions, going into Musgrave Park, and the club was actually for a small club. It seemed to be quite well known. People would have been. We would have found at the time a lot of us, would have been saying to somebody, "Yeah, I play wheelchair basketball," and they would have said it's up for the Knights before you'd even said it. And it was quite that's quite nice. How do they know that? And that shows you that sort of. There was really good sort of PR around it. Those articles were getting into newspapers on a weekly basis. And I think, there wasn't the social media around then, so that's how people were getting their information. We were going around doing demos in different...
Fleming Fulton went over.
We've
done a lot in Fleming Fulton School as well.
Fleming Fulton, yeah, that was a good one where we would have went up and did demos, got the kids sort of trying out, and we were around like every leisure centre nearly in Northern Ireland, and sort of promoting the club, and we were just sort of the 5 or 6 of us doing that off our own bat, and travelling all over the place to try and sort of promote the sport.
Yeah.
The fundraisers too at the shopping centres really worked.
Yeah, they were brilliant.
They were class.
Really good.
Yeah, a lot of people came along and seen what we were doing.
It sounds like, the club and the committee that was part of that kind of era were so open-minded in regards to how to go about different things and how to, you know, be proactive in terms of, like, from a fundraising perspective, you were all over it. From a player recruitment perspective, you were all over it. But with all of those things, I suppose me and Donny and James are very aware that that creates growth as well. You know, we've talked about a lot of the stuff from within the club environment right now, and we're seeing more young people coming into the sport, more females, more males coming in as well and playing all over. And with that, I suppose that brings kind of like me round to looking at equipment. You know, what was the equipment like back in that kind of era, if you know what I mean? Because obviously James, he gets his chair paid for. Matsunaga obviously sorted him out with the chair being a pro bowler. But what was the equipment like? Give us a wee idea.
Oh my God! Well, I can I can tell you two things. One, we used to thought we were really cool in Stranmillis, and we were playing in old hospital chairs with the back down on them. That was us being in the cool environment. And I remember one time a guy come over from one of the companies in England, and he brought some basketball chairs over with him. And I can't even remember what make they were, but he brought
Chevrons, really?
And what were they?
Chevrons.
Chevrons. That's it, Paul. Really, chevrons. And he brought chevrons over, and we were trying them. And I remember I tried one out on the court, and we were playing a wee match just among ourselves. And at half time in our wee sort of funsy game at training, I transferred back out of the chevron basketball chair into the NHS crap Everest Jennings chair because I couldn't control the chevron chair.
Basketball? That's crazy, crazy. And then did that then spark, like obviously with the equipment getting better and, you know, obviously the influence with going across and seeing different players like Pat Anderson being involved with the GB competition and so on, did that kind of spur the club on or individuals on to go on and buy new and more modern equipment?
The club bought a number of chairs. I can't remember, maybe 6 or 7 old sort of battered up sort of chevrons with hardly any paint on them, but they were only a few £100 each.
Yeah.
And that was the first chair sort of I think all us guys had.
Yeah. And were you instrumental in that, Ivor, then, in terms of pulling that all together and from a chairman's perspective? Because you've got a lot of interesting characters, let's put it that way, all pulling in not different directions, but pulling in it together as a club. But, you know, you've got equipment, you've got fundraising there, you've got player recruitment, you've got competitions going on. How did you kind of manage that all?
Well, as far as equipment was concerned, I mean, those old chevron chairs were there whenever I arrived. And being a culture, the first time I went down, I just went down the wheelbarrow. You know, that's how. I think the sort of players, the chairs were very expensive. You know, any sort of money that the club raised probably went into kit or whatever in them days. Yes, and the players sort of like started to buy their own chairs and things. You know, some second hand and so forth. Nearly anybody that turned up with a chair after that. Before, you know, whenever Aubrey got all the sort of yellow and purple ones organised for the juniors and so forth, they nearly bought them as individuals because you couldn't really have asked the club to buy a chair, because, you know, especially a good chair, because they were far too expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that hasn't really changed. It's mad how much of a crossover there still is, you know, from now to kind of then as well. We're having the same discussions within clubs. You know, people come in and try out, say, a club chair, you know, a basic club chair, and the first thing they want to do is, I want one that James McSorley's playing in. You know, all the young lads and girls are looking at people like that, you know, and going, I'll have a $5,000 chair, please, and they're putting it on their Santa list. So some things never change really. But James, do you fancy a chevron chair?
I don't know if I've seen one, so I'm not sure. I could. I don't think I'm allowed in any other chair. I think I'm pretty happy in mine at the minute. They've done a very good job, and it's perfectly tailored to my needs. So I'll stay away from that.
I thought you'd say that.
I don't know if I want a 30-year-old chair for a start.
Here, I suppose I have a wee question for all of you. So, who at the club had the worst haircut? You know, the kind of 80s, 90s era. were
Aubrey's still got the
synonymous with
same one.
some either terrible clothing or haircuts. Music was okay, but who had the worst haircut at the club?
Davy Young.
Oh,
Well, Davy was kind of had this nickname Lombardo. Do you remember that? the Italian guy that used to slick the hair back out over, you know, over whatever, the halipod or whatever. But
I think Jason Blacks was kind of tasty as well at one stage.
Tasty. Oh, dear.
for me,
He was like Harry
For
Coy
me-
with the curtains at the front.
For me, there was a guy, a real character. I mean, the Knights had some unbelievable characters played for, but there was one guy in particular who I used to think he was a fabulous guy. A guy called Neil Summers.
Oh,
Now,
jeez.
Neil was a double amputee, and believe it or not, he had lost his both legs in two separate accidents about 5 years apart. So what's the odds of that? But he was a real character. He was quite small, but he was very, very powerful. And you know, wheelchair basketball probably wasn't the sport for him. He got into powerlifting and broke all sorts of Irish records, and I think he got in the GB Paralympic squad even at one time. But when Neil was charging down the court, if Neil was taking a shot, you knew if you were going to gather the rebound, head back to the halfway line. He was so powerful that he blasted the ball off the backboard, and it usually come back halfway up the court. But and Neil had quite a strange haircut, like to be. He was a great guy. God rest his soul. He's gone now.
Paul will probably remember this, Ivor. We went over to Stoke Mandeville, and Neil was there, and he wouldn't have been in the starting five of for our team. But he got brought on, maybe his first tournament, and he got brought on. He wouldn't have been the sort of have the best chair skills. He was all sort of power, so he would have been just crash bashing everybody. And this guy turned around to us, this guy from a Liverpool team, guy Mark Townley, said to us, "Did your number 10 lose his legs playing wheelchair basketball, Aubrey?" Crashed and everybody.
that's brilliant.
Crazy.
He didn't know how to stop.
Tell me this. So we talked about, you mentioned that everybody always loves a bit of kit, gets very excited about kit. Was this shell suit time, or what was going on back in those days in terms of kit? Who came up
It
with
was
the colours?
just after Chelsea, I think. It was that sort of rough material. So before the proper kits now, all these breathable new fabrics and stuff, had it just changed from shell suit into, it's hard to describe how it was. Almost like a waterproof material.
Okay. Yeah.
That all purple one, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Paul?
Purple, white, and green.
Crazy.
Lovely.
Who came up with the colours for the concept for the club?
Committee.
Yeah. It was actually put in our constitution. Remember when we did our constitution, it was put in the colours of the club will be the lines.
Yeah. I don't know who initially came up with the purple, but I mean, I think you were maybe purple before I even arrived. But it looked well. It stood out. Some of the kits I thought were very nice, as purple and white.
Yeah,
it's still cool. Like we haven't even wanted to change it. Like it's done all right.
We had a kit where we had purple tracksuit bottoms, purple tracksuit tops, and with purple spoke guards on the chair. Barney the dinosaur or whatever that.
Brilliant.
It was very striking. See, when we were going through the airport or anything, to go to play games, it was very striking. Us all sort of pushing along in chairs. First of all, it's quite unusual. Several people with all these sort of chairs, sort of with logos on the side of them, and all on the same kit. It was very striking.
Yeah. And I suppose another question I have, like within the NI program, and I know that many of the clubs as well, and Aubrey, you would have been into this with the Knights, and I know Paul would be, and Ivor as well, to be fair. The kind of travel side of things, obviously you've mentioned going through the airport, and you were going across the international competitions, and you were also playing domestically within kind of GB as well at one point in the GB League. What was that like, in terms of coming in? Obviously, you've all said that you acquired your disabilities. Was that quite different in terms of like traveling as a group of people? From coming out of, I take it was going out of what is now the either the George Best or the international airport?
No.
We had a bus.
We had a bus and went in the ferry.
What?
Oh, it's fancy air travel then.
We had a bus, a white bus that was done up by Wrights, the coach builders
The night flyer.
And they had done the seats, they turned the seats sort of around facing each other so the guys could play cards, and carpeted the whole place, the whole thing out. It was a fantastic bus. Wouldn't go over 40 miles an hour, but apart from that, great. And they even had a space on it for people that needed a bit of a stretch on it to lie out on in that bus. It's called the Night Flyer. In fact, the old Knights logo before I came was something. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy, well, that was painted up the side of the bus.
Oh,
So it was
unbelievable.
white bus. It was a white bus with that logo on it, huge logo. And that bus took us everywhere, down to Dublin, across on the ferry, all over England, and then eventually it blew up on the motorway and we left it there.
Oh dear.
We used to go across on the Friday night, and we would have went across in the ferry, drove to the Gosling Bridge Hotel. All of the other guys will know it well because we stayed there all the time. This wee sort of hotel, which wasn't actually that great, maybe for wheelchair access, but better than a lot of places at that time. We stayed there on Friday night.
Travel Lodge, wasn't it?
The
Travel Lodge or something it was.
Could have been. And then we went down to Sheffield or Oldham or wherever we went on the Saturday and Sunday to play the games,
Remember the day we had jump started?
You can't. But again, how did you obtain a bus? Like, do you know what I mean? You've just threw that out there. Like, it's we had a bus and it was kitted out by Wright Bus and there was carpet on it. And it sounded like a pro team. Like, how did that come about?
Was it Connolly, Ivor? Was it the guy called Connolly Transport who did the mechanic and work for it?
Yes, that's it. It was a sort of an old rack of a bus done up and brought up to a pretty new standard, and was more or less, I think, donated to us.
Unbelievable.
There was no lift or anything, sure there wasn't.
No.
It was you bummed on and you bummed off.
That's it. No luxuries in them days.
So we've covered that you had TV coverage, you had your own bus, you were going to international tournaments. Flip me.
I thought wheelchair basketball had moved forward in the last 30 years.
Yeah, me too.
Unbelievable.
Honestly, I'm writing out my resignation here now.
On the way to a game is some NBA stuff. Like, that's absolutely class.
Danny's got a sweat on here. James is like, I grew up in the wrong era.
I mean, yeah, 100%.
Shell suits and playing cards on the way to games. Unbelievable.
Playing cards was incredible. Like, it was for me Mars because we were traveling so far. Oh, it was brilliant.
I've got a bit of a question there for you guys, which is probably relevant in a minute because everyone's kind of watching it. But the Netflix TV show Last Dance is obviously about Chicago Bulls. I want to kind of ask you about your influences at the time. Obviously, the Bulls were big in the running game, and I imagine. We talked about this the other day. James turning up with an NBA top on and that kind of thing. Was that a thing at the time? Was anyone watching the Bulls, for example, or any other sports?
I think got more into basketball and started watching it, and it was sort of funny because we were sort of nearly doing the same things. The boys are coming in and saying, "Did you see LeBlanc? What do you call your man? LeBron James. Call your man." And Kobe Bryant and all that there. They're talking about, did you see his 3-pointer or his last shot? But we were sort of talking about it at the time. So, more of the guys got into watching basketball and buying basketball shirts and that.
Used to be on Channel 4 at 11, 12 o'clock at night. The NBA. Yeah.
There used to be a program on the Big 8, you call it, and it was a wheelchair basketball competition, and it was done by Channel 4 every Sunday or something like that. And it was called the Big 8 because it was the 8 teams in the top division, which was the first division or whatever they called it then, the Premiership. And what always really bugged us was that it was on for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, showed one match each week. And we got promoted from, say, the second division. We won the second division, got promoted up into the first division. We're going to be on the Big 8 next year, and the program stopped.
They just run the numbers of trying to get a camera across the water, and they were like,
no, those are TV adverts. Well, they've had 2 already. They don't need any more coverage.
Yeah, they heard the potties were coming, so they cut it.
I have a quick question, and I suppose this is the James as well, so I'll go around everybody. But can you name kind of like a favourite domestic player or international player at that time, going from like Aubrey across? So Aubrey, like a favourite international or domestic player, or even club player at that time?
Do you mean somebody sort of looked up to or aspired to, or
played against, aspired to? You talked about people like Pat Anderson there. You know, is there anybody really stands out from your era, of that era, that kind of like were like, wow, they were a real standout player from both a domestic standpoint or an international standpoint?
Probably somebody like Colin Price, playing for Sheffield. He was a point guard for Sheffield and played for GB, and was an unbelievable player then, so it was fantastic. Even playing against, when we're playing against his team, they would have tanked us, but still, getting that opportunity, that would have been somebody who would have stood out for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Paul, what about yourself from a forward's perspective?
Same teams actually. Colin Price's main sort of assist would be Callum Gordon.
Yeah.
Fantastic player, great rebounder, passer, just phenomenal strength. And then another player I really liked when I played internationally was Paz, played for Spain. He wasn't the tallest guy in the world, but his arms went on forever, and he was just so strong and fantastic shooter.
Sounds a bit like James there.
Stop. Fantastic. Where it stops.
What about you, Ivor?
Has to be Aubrey Bingham. I tell you, whenever I seen Patrick Anderson at the Excalibur tournament in '96, I was just mesmerised by what he could do at that age. You couldn't stop the guy. And then I saw him at the Paralympics again over in London there, and he just improved to beyond belief,
Yeah.
But I tell you, a player who I love to watch was Mookie, Matt Rolson, because of his chair skills. I mean, Matt could take a chair through gaps that weren't even there.
Yeah.
Still can.
Yeah, unbelievable.
His speed and his chair skills, and obviously James is doing great things, and I'm very, very proud of him, sort of, I mean, when you look at Rory McIlroy and Rory Best and James McSorley, massive in the same breath of those guys, now what he's doing there on TV, so
I know about that.
brilliant.
Yeah, James, obviously that's high praise, mate, and I know that you're a very humble person and you don't often take it, but from your perspective, like what is one of your favorite players domestically or from a GB standpoint, and then from an international scene, who's your...
There's three of them on the call. Ivor stole my answer. I was going to say Aubrey Bingham. Like, about once a session when I come back, even nowadays when Aubrey decides to show up to training. Once a session when I come back and watch nights, Aubrey will still do something and I'll be like, what? No, but hold up. Like, I'll be like trying to like run the maths in my head. I'm like, but he did this and then that. Oh, all right, cool. Like, Aubrey will make a read that it's just so instinctive because obviously like no one, like I've grown up learning basketball off other people with established ways of playing, and you probably just figured it all out on your own, which means you've just got like extra dimensions of ways to make passes and move chairs and stuff, and it's like that just blows my mind. And the other ones, like if we're talking domestically, you can look at your Paul McKillop's unbelievable. Sure, he taught me how to. Him and Matt taught me how to take this seriously. Is the thing I would say. Like, great Paul McKillop story. I'll probably bring it up when we come on here. He used to bring me to Jordanstown when he would do Sinai gym sessions. So he'd have the court booked from, I think it was 8 to half 9, and I'd do like a fairly high level, like shooting session with him, pretty intense, whatever. Then he'd take a wee break, go to the gym, and then I wasn't in the gym at that stage. I was about 14. So I'd just sit and wait, and if the court was free, I'd keep shooting. He one day left me there to go do a session, went and did an hour and a half in the gym, and then forgot about me, went home. I shot from 8 o'clock to 12:30. And I got a phone call, and it was just like, because I was like, oh, he must be busy. Like, he's got stuff to do. So I know it looks pretty important. There must be meetings or God knows what. And I was like, all right. And I just got a phone call, and it's like, I was like, hello. And he didn't even say hello. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you all right? Are you hungry? Do you need anything? He was like, he'd got all the way home, opened his fridge, and then just gone, oh no. But no, that was, yeah. But like going to sessions with those guys kind of taught me how to take it seriously. And then the last one I'll mention is Jason Kennedy. Like, he's another one. About once a session when I come home, I'm like, oh my God, Kirby's so good at basketball. Like, just he can still shoot and he can still move and he can still pass. And I think it's that thing of being a point guard. When you're on your feet, you have to be able to see the game, and you're a bit smaller than people. And then he's taller than everyone, well, taller than most guys, as a 4'5" in his chair. So he's just got so much time and space to like see over the top of everything and make cool passes. But yeah, I just get excited when I talk about basketball, so I went for that. To summarize everyone.
You're fine. But it is really cool to hear, different names, different eras, different people that had an impact. And then I suppose next week we'll have people like Jason on, hopefully, and be able to talk to them a wee bit more about their experiences and the impact that they've had within the club environment. I suppose, like kind of last question, obviously I'm very interested from a coaching perspective, how the game changes over, eras and stuff like that. What was the kind of style of basketball that was being played then? Obviously we're going with more mid-point teams that we're seeing now, a lot more power and pace, and developed skill-wise. So what was it like back in the kind of the end of the 80s going into the 90s?
My sort of thinking on it would be, a lot of the teams would have been playing sort of all the same sort of defense nearly. They were all playing a zone defense, and people were trying to shoot behind screens, which would have been sort of my first memory of, how you can score a basket apart from a free layup or something like that. But shooting from behind screens and that, would have been whereas it's sort of developed, and because shooters have got a lot better, and teams now push out more, don't they? And the defense isn't so much a zone defense, because you can't let people come down anymore and just pop a shot up from just outside the zone, because they're such good shooters now.
Yeah, absolutely. But what about you, Paul? Have you seen much of a change, obviously being that forward? As it went from, obviously from my perspective, I've seen it move away from maybe being, the sport being dominated by bigs and things like that. But obviously I don't know what the style was back then.
Well, I was the tallest player that we had at the time, and I was a 3. So it was a bit more difficult for me to play against the 4s, 4.5s. Yeah. We very much played like a 2-man offense, like a strong side, weak side, where you work as a 2 rather than working as 5. When the 3 were working one side, the 2 were sort of doing something on the other side. We tried to go into like a triangle press, like a 3-2. We tried that. It worked quite well for us because we had Matt and Aubrey on the floor. They were very quick. And then the big guy in the middle trying to cut off the balls. So nowadays it's very much high lines, presses, trying to stop the offense as quick as possible. Whereas back then we had a chance to set up for, like, we had 30 seconds to start off with. Now it's 27. So there was a few differences. But the speed of the game got so much quicker. So much quicker.
We are a lot better now, wouldn't they be, Paul? Because they're training a lot more, and the chairs are a lot lighter as well.
The chairs have a lot to do. We were going from like having no tip bars, no strapping, none of those things, to the things that are now, like aircrafts. They're that good.
Yeah. Would that be fair to say, James? Have you seen a massive change in terms of the development of the equipment and then having an impact on the game? And then maybe it not being so dominated. Obviously, whenever I first came in, you were talking, there were some big players out there that were kind of dominating inside and outside, and playing off the post. But how have you seen it kind of going? Where do you think the next step is?
the game had already gone past like day chairs and stuff by the time I got in. My first chair was a pretty good sports chair, so I was very lucky there. But I think where the game's going, you see it's speeding up now. It's getting more and more open on offense. Like teams are getting harder to stop. Like GB would consistently put up 70, 80 points in a game now against anyone, and that's something that I think other teams are going to try and do, because if you can put 80 on teams, like you're going to win most games. And then obviously stuff goes back and forward. Like the defense has got better now. People are figuring out ways to open it up and open the game up and shoot with a bit more range, shoot more threes to open things up and kind of create more scoring opportunities. And then teams will figure out how to plug that gap and it'll swing back and defenses will get better and people will innovate. That's kind of the way it goes. Even like if you look at able-bodied basketball, it's been around for like a far like greater period of time. In the last 5 years, teams have been like, oh, if we just shoot a load of threes, we'll win a load of games. And it's true. So if they're still figuring something out in a game that's decades further into its development and millions and billions of pounds further into its development, like I've no doubt that people will be figuring stuff out in wheelchair basketball and they'll take that next step towards scoring another 10 points a game, or someone will figure out how to stop that. There's just people will innovate, and it takes very smart, very brave people to go, never mind what everyone else is doing. If we try this over here, and you see some people doing it, and it's only a matter of time until it catches on, I think.
But can I ask you a question about, so apart from you, the players that you're playing with at the minute in Gran Canaria, I take it some of them are Spanish players from different parts of Spain, and then some of them are overseas players like yourself.
All the Spanish guys on our team are Canarian, so it's we have myself, 2 Dutch guys, South African player, and 2 Americans, and then some Canarians.
And then so there's most of the team is non-Spanish then.
Yeah, it's 6 foreign and 4.
Right. Okay. What would you say in terms of? So obviously those players are all really good players at the top of their game and all really fast, good shooters. But say apart from speed and shooting, what would you say are the other maybe 1 or 2 aspects that team that you're playing with at Gran Canaria would be different than the Knights? Apart from shooting or faster or training more?
Yeah, I think, as you say, a lot of it is just skill development. Like we've all had many more hours to sort of get quicker, faster, as you say, like better chair skills, better shooting. And then I think the other thing is, apart from the stuff that you said, once you're exposed to the highest level of the game for that long, your ability to make the decisions at that speed just like shoots up massively. So we've got a load of guys who work really, really hard at a really high speed, but can still, like, their brain is like, they're not leaving their brain behind. Like, you're able to catch up and like think at that level as well, which is what kind of sets the highest level apart. Because like people can push their heads off mindlessly at any level. Like there's really quick guys that play junior basketball in any country, but it's people who can go that fast and still execute physically with what they're doing with their hands and can still think their way through it. So yeah, I think it's that mental speed that comes with like being sort of just being involved in the sport at that level for that long. I think that's it.
Guys, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to
it really has.
Talk through that. We could talk for flipping hours, I'm sure, about different things that happened throughout that era. But I'm sure I can speak for the other guys as well. It's been unbelievable to kind of hear the different mental stories about adverts and having your own bus and going to Sweden and winning competitions. And I suppose like it's just been unbelievable. Guys, have you anything to kind of add to that?
Could I just mention one more thing before I go? And it's about the 90s and the players I played with. But there are 6 players who are now representing the Knights up in the sky, playing on a basketball court paved in gold. And I don't want to finish the morbid note, but these are all great characters, and I love them all. We had Neil Summers, Robin Quinn, Karen Crummy, Jared McCrossan, Chris O'Neill and Michael Mann, and gone but never forgotten. They were 90s players, like great characters all.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like an unbelievable era. That, and as I said before, like James and people like the new crop coming through now, we felt it was really, really important that they understood where the development of the game came from, and the love and excitement that you guys all have for the game, and the amount of countless hours that you've put into the game and the development of it. So thanks very much, guys, for sharing your kind of like your thoughts and your memories with us. But we'll have, apparently this is the best part of the podcast. I don't know, it'll be down to you guys to kind of come up with that. But we'll have Danny's lightning round now. So Danny, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, no, listen, absolutely is the best part. However, I do say that every week, and actually I think this week I can genuinely say it's not going to be the best part. I think the last hour or so has been unreal. So, yeah, same format as usual, 10 questions, but slightly different in the sense I'm going to come to each of you individually, so you get a question each. So try and give me the first thing you can think of, if you don't mind. So, Paul, I'm going to start with you, all right?
Yeah.
Your best moment in sport so far?
Screen Cup.
Okay. Aubrey, funniest team member you've played with?
Funniest team member?
Definitely.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that is...
Pascal.
Pistol Pete, yes. Peter Moore from Glasgow, who played for us for a number of years. Yeah, he's an absolute lunatic.
Either the hardest trainer you trained with?
The hardest trainer?
Yeah.
As in like hard-ass coach, or?
The hardest as in like who put the most work into their training?
Hard-ass.
must be the accent. Must be the accent.
So, for a minute, I thought you meant coach there, but
No, it's all very PG here, Ivan.
Yeah, we had a few coaches who put us through our paces, there's no doubt about it, but probably the hardest trainer. I don't know. Everyone kind of, I suppose, would have trained hard, but probably Aubrey. Probably.
Yeah. Good shout. Paul, back to you. Toughest opponent? It can be a team or an individual or whatever.
Hated playing Sheffield. Sheffield Steelers were always tough.
Always tough, yeah.
Yeah.
James, little smile there.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Aubrey, your sporting hero?
Sporting hero? I would say Bobby Robson.
Bobby Robson, good shout. Ivor, interesting facts about yourself or the Knights?
Well, there's not too many interesting facts on me, so I'll go on the Knights. I'm going to mention this Pistol Pete again. Guy from Glasgow signed for us, came across in 1995, and as Aubrey says, what a character. But he's actually in hospital at the minute, so I mean, if he's watching this, I'm going to tell this story because it'll cheer him up. I remember him scoring. Do you remember the Trevor Sinclair overhead kick?
Yeah.
Or Queen's Park Rangers.
QPR,
Never repeated. Absolutely unbelievable. Well, Pistol scored a basket like that from the halfway against a London team and when we were playing them in the Antrim Forum. I think they were 1 point ahead of us with about 3 seconds to go or something like that. Aubrey or Paul would probably correct me.
Paddy Addington's team, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Ian Laker's team. Hounslow. And Pistol Pete got the ball, and I think the seconds were running down, and he was facing the wrong way about the halfway line, and he launched this thing out over his head. And if it didn't go right up and sail right down through the middle of the basket without even touching the hoop and give us the victory.
Unbelievable.
That's you to yourself. That's probably a memory that'll stay with me.
Oh, brilliant.
Legend.
Great answer. Great answer, Ivor. Brilliant answer. Paul, back to you. Aim for the future in wheelchair basketball?
For the Wolves to be in the GB League.
Good shout, yeah, like that. Aubrey, a quote that you like or you live by? It's a tough one.
Oh, for goodness.
Yeah, that's tough. You've had some tough ones.
Go on, Obs.
That I live by. None comes to mind. Sorry.
That's what Trevor Lucy did to me as well. Either one live sports event you want to see or you have seen.
One live sports
event, yeah.
Yeah. Well, apart from Premiership football, my real passion over here is road racing, motorcycle road racing. And unfortunately, the Northwest and the Ulster Grand Prix aren't on this year because of the COVID thing. But I mean, that's the highlight of my year, going down to the Northwest of the Ulster Grand Prix. I love road racing. I know it's crazy and people get killed, but I'm kind of hooked on it.
Last one. This is going to go to each of you. So again, I'll start with you, Paul. What excites you about wheelchair basketball in Northern Ireland at the minute?
In Northern Ireland at the minute?
Yeah.
The enthusiasm for it.
Yeah.
My kids just want to play and play and play. So that's the main drive.
Fantastic. Aubrey, same question to you.
Really excited about the Northern Ireland League. I think it's been a fantastic addition, and you guys have done a great job in pulling that together, and not only sort of the league and the teams and that, but what you have done with the table officials and the referees. And the league days have been really enjoyable. On an individual level, like going along to play for the, but I love watching and seeing the new players coming through. Like Paul was talking about earlier, his team, you can really see the improvement on them, and just the enthusiasm in that league from people who in the clubs, not only the best players in those clubs, but people who are getting some socially out of it as well. I think it's been really, really positive.
And last one, Ivor, I'm going to ask you the same thing. You've probably seen a bit about what's going on in Northern Ireland basketball. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's fantastic that it's continuing, and there are so many more players now than there would have been whenever I was around playing the basketball. Fair play to Paul there for developing that team up there in Derry. Brilliant. The fact that we have quite a few teams in the wee Northern Ireland League, brilliant. It's really, really good. It's good to hear. I'm not about on the scene very much at all nowadays, but I do sort of keep listening here, keep listening for things, and to hear that that's going on is brilliant. And it's giving people a chance to participate in what is a fantastic sport. So well done, guys.
No, James, thanks for those answers. I mean, I suppose one thing I want to finish off with saying is that's been absolutely class, and I think the heritage and the story behind it is unbelievable. And there's things there that have made me laugh and made me sad and made me that kind of think, and made me kind of think of where we're at now. So I think there's a lot of stuff there that's really, really powerful. And I just really want to thank you for your time, and not just today, but over the last 30 years, because undoubtedly none of this will be able to happen without yourself and the guys you mentioned, Michael Mullis and others as well. So thank you so much from me personally. I really, really appreciate it. Really do.
100%.
Thank you.
I'll back that up. James, I've got one question for you. How has this been today? Because you've had so many people that have had an influence on you. How has it been for you?
I've been like a kid on Christmas all day. This has been so exciting to hear all the old stories, and it's just to hear the history of the sport within Northern Ireland from the very beginning has been an absolute pleasure. Like as I said earlier, when I ever brought out that program from that tournament, I was like,
class.
Let me see it. Like I will when all of this is over, I'll get home and I'll drive all the way up to the sticks, and I'll get a copy of that. I'll disinfect it. Don't worry, just in case I'm worried about that. But when it's safe, I want to say that, and I could sit here for the rest of the day and listen to stories, and it's just absolutely it's been brilliant to hear. And I want to thank you guys for coming on and telling these stories, and also for starting this and building it from the ground up, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for that at the start. And
you've taken things to the next level, like you and people in Con, James, where you're playing very professionally, getting paid and training every day, and that, and it's fantastic to see what you guys have done.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just like I've said before, like basketball's completely changed my life, and I don't have a chance to be a basketball player without you guys. So thank you. Like it's the basketball, but it's the idea of I was a 6-year-old in a wheelchair, and I got to come along on a Tuesday night and chat to a load of other kids in wheelchairs and kind of get used to being myself and being a kid in a chair, and like that's far more important than the basketball. So yeah.
That's one of the things I remember saying to a parent one time that said to me about, you know, being involved in the club, in the junior club, and I said to him, but it's not about basketball. And they sort of looked at me strangely. What do you mean it's a basketball club? And I says, well, the basketball is part of it, but all those other things, you know, those socializing, learning about driving a car, you know, people going to university, people getting jobs, you know, people having families and all. A lot of parents of junior kids, when they came along, they had thought, my kid's going to be as a wheelchair user, they aren't going to be able to do any sport at any level, and all of a sudden they're seeing people not only playing sport but thriving in their sort of everyday lives. And I think that sort of really brought it home to a lot of parents of the junior kids.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Guys, I thought that was gonna, I don't know, that's a real class ending to a great podcast, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally.
Listen, thanks very much again, Ivor, Jess, Aubrey Bingham, Paul Gallagher. Obviously, we've got our mainstays. We've got Danny and James as well. Cheers for your input. Guys, just thanks very much. It's been really impactful. It's been brilliant to hear how things used to go down in the 90s. Obviously, for next week, we'll be looking at episode 10 and going into the noughties with a couple of influential people, one of which may be on here as well. So look out for that on our social media platforms and Disability Sport NI. And also we've got a lot of good stuff going on our social media. Our wider team are doing a lot of incredible work in terms of putting workouts out there. So make sure you catch up on those types of stuff and keep yourself active. And as per usual, you know, make sure we're sticking to the Public Health Agency's advice, washing our hands, staying 2 meters apart. And as we know, social distancing is currently saving lives, so continue to do that. And I suppose all I have to say is stay active, stay home, and stay safe. Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers, Phil.
Yeah.